What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Mesa Outdoors episode. In this video I am going to show you guys how to go from this to this in a day's worth of work. So all you really need is a propane tank, propane burner, a pot, and some tools like this. I use this to pull out the nasal cavity, and then I have this guy right here. It's just a pick to get out any little, membrane or meat that's in some hard nooks and crannies to get to. And then a blade is also good, so if you need to scrape off any meat or anything like that. I got all those tools at Harbor Freight, probably spent about 10-15 bucks. They're cheap tools, but they'll get the job done, especially for this type of work. Let's get started. So what I'm gonna do first is put the deer head in my pot, and then I'm gonna fill up the pot to about the base of the burrs to just a little bit over the burrs to make sure he's completely submerged. So what I did here is I had to put these two bars right here across to hold this deer in place to where the whole skull would be completely submerged in the water. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some Dawn dish soap to this, and that's just going to help with degreasing and help getting some of that meat off. So a good tip for when you're doing this is to get as much meat off as possible. So you're going to remove the lower jaw, you're going to take off the tongue, you're going to take out the eyeball. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that you do not have to boil a whole lot of meat. The more meat you have to boil, the longer it's going to take, and the longer you boil, the more brittle the bone's going to get. So that's why a lot of people don't like doing this boil process. Guys will use beetles or the maceration, but for me this has worked very well in getting it done clean. It's easy. I'm able to consistently do it to where the skulls are clean, they're not greasy, and they stay white. So I know there's 1,000 ways to do this. Someone's gonna say their way's better than the other person's, but this is the way I do it. So now we're just gonna get this thing going, and once it hits a rolling boil, I'm gonna pull it out of here, remove the nasal cavity, and then I'll get it under the pressure washer. Now we cook. So here are the tools I'm using. So I'm just using this long nose needle pliers, or needle nose, long nose, needle nose, whatever you want to call them. These guys as well. Another smaller pair to get into like the brain and some of those tighter spots you got to get to. Blade, just in case I need to do any scraping. The pick that I described earlier, just using it to get in just tight spots. This, I just have it out here. I don't know. I use it to mix the soap in the water, and sometimes use it to pop out some things. So it's starting to hit a little bit of a rolling boil, and another good indication if it's ready is the meat will start to split on the skull. So you can see right there, that membrane on the skull is starting to split. So now I can pull out that nasal cavity and start getting the pressure washer on it. What else you're going to want to do is pop out these earbuds right here these little ear holes. So I use this tool right here. I just get in there, sink it in there, and then just work it. Pops off. Get off like that. Boom. Into the pot. I'll punch through right here and I'll just make it a little bit more accessible to get into this brain, this nasal cavity. So this all connects right there in the front. So boom, got that nasal cavity out. So now that it's looking like this, it is ready for the pressure washer. The best thing to do is pull it out when it's piping hot like this, and that way all this meat and membrane will come off real easy. First I'm going to change out of these Crocs. These aren't ideal for hosing off heads, so I'm going to throw the rubber boots on. So now we got the skull looking like this. No meat. It's ready for the whitening process. So now what I'll do is I will wrap the antler from the burr to about midway with saran wrap, just to make sure I don't get any of the whitening products on the antler, which will discolor that natural look. So it'll look something like that. Now I gotta do the other side. So what I use for whitening is a 50 volume cream. Shout out to my Aunt Tammy for getting this for me. You need a professional, so someone who does hair, my aunt does hair, to get this percentage of volume. It is pretty potent stuff, so make sure you wear gloves when mixing and messing with this. This is what I think is the difference from really getting that pop on these white skulls compared to like the 20, 30, or even the 40. The 40 to the 50, there's a pretty big jump. I've noticed it. I ran out of 50 and had to use 40, and it's just not the same. So if you can get your hands on 50, do that. So what I do is I mix the blue flash with the 50 by volume cream, and I make like a paste out of it. So I'll do about half and half of each, and then I'll just cake it all over this thing and let it sit for 12 hours, and probably let it sit a little longer today since I'm getting done kind of late. I'll let it sit in the sun for probably 4 or 5 hours, but I'll let it sit covered up with the clear trash bags all night, and then probably rinse it off about 12 o'clock tomorrow, and then let it sun dry, and it'll be finished product. So now we get to whitening. Alright, so now it's the next day. Let it sit. Still wrapped up. Now I'll take it to the front, get all the whitening solution off of it, and it'll be ready to sun dry. Now that I sprayed off all the whitening product, this is what it should look like. So now I'll let it sun dry, and this thing will really get white and start to pop as it dries out. So the more dry time, the whiter it's gonna get. This is a buck that my buddy Tim shot last week of A-Zone, 22 inch wide, 3x3, real solid buck. So now we let it dry. As you can see, as it's drying, it's starting to whiten up some more. So here's the finished product on the How To DIY Your Own Euro. About a day's worth of work. So I started yesterday about 2:30, let it whiten overnight, and then pulled it out about noon, hosed it off, and it's about 3-4 o'clock right now, and it's already dry, and it's going to keep getting whiter, as you can see. So the more dry time you have, the whiter it'll get. But that's a finished product right there. Came out nice and white, nice and clean, and it's ready to go home. So if you haven't already, subscribe, drop a like. If you have any questions, drop a comment, and I'll get back to those and answer them. That's a wrap.